Sometimes it takes a change of scenery to remind you that the spark was never gone. It was just buried under the busyness. One of the things that Puerto Rico reminded us that love still burns when you feed it attention. We'll talk about it right after this.
Let's talk about love and marriage the way that God intended. A life experience, here we share it. The Love Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. Love Fruit Podcast. Will help your spirit transform.
Yo, 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 yo. What's going on, y'all? So, as you heard me say about how one of the things that reminded us that love still burns was Puerto Rico. But in all honesty, it started before then. And what I'm getting at is sometimes that the change of scenery can reignite, remind you, or whatever it is, what's really going on, where y'all really stand. So for us, in our reality, the change of scenery was when the kids left. They changed scenery. They changed, the atmosphere a little bit because once it went off to school, it had us in another place. So like, all right, where are we really? It's just us. We're going to talk. We're going to fight. We're going to eat. So what is it? What do you want? Do you just want to sit here and hold each other and cuddle and watch a movie or whatever? So I think the change of scenery helps for you to reignite what you felt like might have been lost. Kyle?
I think it allows you to reconnect in a lot of different ways. I had something else in mind, but I lost it. But I think the focus is what changed. So again, the change of scenery allows you to change your focus. It allows you to change what you're seeing every day. So having young children, adolescents, teenagers on up, until, like Marie said, they went away to college. You always had somebody else around. You always had someone else really to think of and care for. So that alone time, that one-on-one time, that seeing your spouse as your spouse, as more than just a parental partner, more than just a co-parent or whatever else goes on, when you have your children around, that not having them in the house, having them away for just a few months at a time allowed us to focus on each other. It allowed us to say, hey, what do you want for dinner?
Right.
And not have to take in account a lot of other people. What do you want to do this evening? It's not like, oh, well, this person has to go off to practice and this person has to get picked up late from school. There's a lot of other things that were going on for many, many years. But, having just the two of us, as the song says, allowed us to focus again on one another, allowed us to focus on ourselves and individually. Who are we? No longer just the mom, no longer just the dad, but so many other things. And I think with that is why the podcast was able to come about. I think that is why a lot of different streams within the business were able to be birthed because, one, we had time to do it.
Right.
And then two, we had the focus, the energy, overall, just to put some of those things into place.
When you think about it, though, for yourself, at what point did things really change? Was it just when they left? Was it a conversation? Was it hey, in a minute, things aren't going to be the same? So when did things really change for you?
I think you led the charge, if you will, saying, "Hey, I want to date my girlfriend again, date my wife." Um, so we created that atmosphere in our home.
Uh-huh.
So while we were dating, we had some intimate dinners, just the two of us.
Right.
Some by candlelight, some by soft music or whatever. So we recreated that a few times, dimmed the lights, put on restaurant music on iTunes or whatever, Apple, music.
Right.
Prepped a meal together or had a meal, even ordered out a few times, but sat at the dining room table, just the two of us, and was able to look deep into each other's eyes, was able to have good conversation. And I think that made a huge, huge difference of just reconnecting in that place and in that space. I think that started a lot of it because it allowed us to look at each other again, reconnecting to our past, but also connecting to what do we want the rest of this to look like? What do we want our future to look like? Because to be real, you said years ago that you didn't see us surviving once the kids left the house. You didn't see that we had a connection that we would be able to withstand, the test of time. So I hope that hits somebody's, heart and ears that, as blissful as we may seem today, there were times and there was a season and there was a period of time where, like, again, where Maurice didn't feel as though that we would be, forever.
Right.
That, hey, we're kind of here for the kids. That's what keeps us together. We don't have anything to talk about. We don't have anything in common, and it would be over. And I'm not putting that all on Maurice. That's what he expressed. For myself, I felt isolated. I felt distant. And just, again, going through the motions. So didn't have that connection. I was okay with not looking at the same shows he looked at. I was okay with not being excited about, whatever new song he was excited about. But being able to have that conversation and talk about it, like, okay, you're excited about it, but I don't have to have that same excitement. Where I think you wanted me to be just as hype, about whatever, that TV show, game, music was. But I wasn't. But I was still listened and entertained what you may have had to say. But I think sitting down at that dining room, to me, the dining room table with the soft lighting and soft music and just having you there, it reminded me again of when we were dating, even to when we first got married. I think we had a candlelight dinner when we first got married. So it just kind of reminded me why we're here. And that's kind of where things kind of sparked for me. How about you?
I mean, I think, excuse me, it might have started once our oldest went off to school, right? And you're like, all right, for me, it was like, all right, Maurice, you're here. Things are winding down a little bit, not as, fast paced, not as busy, all those type of things. And then, now we did transition some of the energy to now, our second child, getting them ready for school, college or whatever it might have been, so, I think in considering, all right, here's what's going on, this is what we need to do, whatever, and then now that person is out the house, all right, it's quiet in here. Now I can slow down. Now I can start to figure out who's Maurice again? And I think that's part of the thing that I had lost a little bit of who I am. And so when we take a look at the trip to Puerto Rico, is very similar of, all right, everybody went to school, but it's during the pandemic. The pandemic kind of messed up a lot of that, to some degree. And then, and then from there, we had other challenges. So when we had that quick little every semester for like 3 semesters straight where, all right, we have a couple weeks where they're on campus, but now all of a sudden there's a whole lot of back and forth and all that type of stuff. Though we had glimpses of, hey, what's up? Where we are and what's going on. And like you said, can we date? Can we go to the mall and eat and all that type of stuff without having to worry about, do we have to bring something back? Or anything like that, or just considering another individual. So, so now you start to have those moments where, I really want those moments back. And so when we did the trip to Puerto Rico, and being there on the beach, being there by the pool, being there in the hotel room as we look at the storm coming towards us, as we are there just walking down the street, as we are there just sitting at the table, as you stated, just speaking to one another, talking to one another, not talking at each other, not having another type of expectation, enjoying food, the moment, the atmosphere, whatever it is, that's something totally different. Well, that's what it's like when you're dating. It's something different. You're enjoying it. You're laid back or whatever. When you, for us, I know for myself, again, we're married, even though we dated for 3 years, but we're married, it's like, oh, wow, this is a whole different vibe. This is a whole different setting. This is a whole different mindset, and then, but even with that, even though we were married, but now we are expecting, like almost as soon as we got married, it's like, poof, it's time for you to have a baby, like right now, like this moment, and so even though we were married without a kid for over about 9-10 months. Got married in September, baby was born in July, so 9-10 months. So we didn't quite make 12 months being married, and being by ourselves. But now, in all reality, we got married in September. Now we have, we know we're pregnant pretty much by Christmas. Mm-hmm. That was a Christmas gift to everybody. Hey, here's an ultrasound picture, whatever. And so, so now your attitude and everything changes from let's enjoy us. Well, I know my attitude changed from let's enjoy us to what is this next step? Let's start thinking about nursery stuff and let's think about baby names and whatever else. But we're not thinking about us anymore. Mm-hmm. So even in our opportunity to really think about ourselves, we only had it from essence of responsible for another human being 4 months. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Because as soon as you found out you're pregnant, now all of a sudden you change the way you're eating. You're taking vitamins and so all of a sudden you're not, so only 4 months in of our marriage, we had to take care of somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so now the question is for those of you out there who might have had children prior to you getting married, prior to, you're dating, now you find someone who has kids, what are those things that you have to transition into? And so now the kids are out the house. Do you even know who you are? Mm-hmm. Because now you got together for a purpose, right. With a mission or whatever it might have been. In our case, we got married and then had the kids. But even with that, 4 months in, we're pregnant, and now you have that, again, responsibility. And then because of that and not understanding the value of $1, responsibility, even for myself, like, just talking about myself, not understanding the responsibility of a dollar, the responsibility of a husband, a better son, a better brother, or whatever it might have been, let alone a husband and then a father. Like, that's a whole nother vibe, so what is that like? The first time I'm having neighbors in a while that I spoke to, because prior to, we had neighbors, where I lived at other places, but I wasn't talking to anybody, and then now all of a sudden we're conversing with our neighbors all the time. We had our neighbors come to our wedding and this, whatever, and so, it's a whole lot that happened at one time. And then in all reality, I lost myself. And who is Maurice? You wake up like, yeah, I'm Maurice, and I'm going to go off and I'm going to conquer the world. Well, what does Maurice really want, though?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we started this podcasting thing, you said, Maurice, like, this is probably the first thing. I'm saying, I'm paraphrasing pretty much. But Maurice, this is probably the first thing that you've ever done where it was just you.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first thing that you've had in a while where it is truly your voice. You control the narrative or whatever it is. Your personality get to come out. And so when that has happened, and me not relying on other individuals, not having the quote unquote excuses of responsibility or whatever it is, I was only responsible for myself. And then what happened in that moment, just like where it is with school right now, I'm an adult, student right now. I'm an adult learner, and my GPA is a 3.3. And so what happens is I start to understand, like, hey, Maurice, you really are an achiever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Maurice, you really have it within you, because now you don't have all the extra responsibilities weighing you down. And so, with That'll Never Work podcast, won an award, right?
Yes.
With No Fruit podcast, we've been nominated, putting ourselves out there, and so, no matter what other stressors has been surrounding us, because if y'all been around us, y'all know that it's almost like, come on, God, please, can we have just one moment? But there's something that my uncle said to me the other day. He said, Maurice, regardless of whatever is going on with you, you're probably the strongest person I know.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, because everything that's been thrown at you, you haven't allowed it to break you. You haven't succumbed to it or whatever it is. And so there are moments where I feel like I want to break. There are moments, when I just want to be, I'm just tired. And, my body just like, look, we can't take it no more. We're going to be sick. We're calling out sick today. Unfortunately, when it calls out sick, it calls out sick for a minute. And it literally does. It does call out sick. And so, so I think what happens is, for Maurice, I lost a lot. And just even talking it out loud with y'all, of understanding, like, hey, you know what? I had to change my persona and my mindset and everything 4 months into our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And now, what is that? Who is that Maurice? When I still didn't know who Maurice was,
Mm-hmm.
at that
young age, yeah.
Right. So I think, so once we were able to sit down and start the process of, hey, they're out the house. Hey, you know what? Let's go to the mall. And we didn't go to, when I said we went to the mall, like, we went to a mall that wasn't, it was like an hour and a half away from where we were, where we live, just because, right? And so, with that being said, you start to realize that your time is yours, and how you spend it is how you decide to spend it, and what is it worth? And so now it's time to say, you know what? Do I really see myself, if this really was my life partner, and I was able to rekindle that thought or that idea. So now that they're adults and we're definitely not so worried about them, that allowed Puerto Rico reiterated they're adults for us,
Mm-hmm.
because now we don't have to be, hold on so tightly, and so I think change of scenery allowed me to say, all right, Maurice, this is who you are. This is where you want to be. And let's go get it.
I think, outside of Puerto Rico, and we were putting a lot of emphasis there because that was kind of our second honeymoon celebration of 25 years of being married. But there were a lot of other things I think that we did that was a change of scenery that sparked something within us, sparked something within our relationship. And again, it was just anything that was out of the norm, anything that wasn't our regular outings, and the change of scenery. So,
Rehoboth.
right, an AC trip. Even sometimes we would just drive to a local park. I think we've talked about this before, but just sitting there in the quietness of amongst trees and grass, and nothing else. You don't hear cars zooming by. I think one of the parks we went to, there was like a train that was kind of off to the distance we could hear and see. But even though, trains can be a little bit soothing of a sound.
Consistency.
But it allowed us just, again, not to be drawn into our phones, not to be drawn into television in any way, not to be drawn into our kids, not to be drawn into what's going on with our aging parents. But it allowed us, just one, to focus on each other, and then two, just to see nature, to see the hand of God amongst everything. So you hear the little rustle in the trees. You're like, okay, what's that? Mm-hmm. Is it the wind just blowing? Is it a squirrel? Is it something else? Do we need to be alarmed? But again, we were in that moment together, do we have to get up and go? And then it started to rain, so we sat in the rain for a little while. Where a lot of these moments have rain in them, it seems like. We enjoyed the rain for a little while in that moment, and then, decided to depart. There's other times we've gone just for a walk. I think we talked a little bit about at one time when we were on our health mission, we would get up and go walk every morning. I think during that COVID time, when everything was kind of shut down, we would get up and go for a walk around and watch the sunrise. And again, just some of that quietness, some of that connection with nature, connection with God drew us closer together. So I think all of those things, a change of scenery, we could have, and we did at times exercise at home, doing different things with looking at videos and, doing what they say do on the video, or we have a stationary bike and some free weights. So we did some things at home, but it was a lot different to change the scenery and change the viewpoint, change our vantage point. It just opened up other parts of us in some way. So that's remarkable that how that happens, that what you see impacts so many of your other senses. It can impact so much of your life. So, I challenge everybody that's in a relationship or whatever to do a change of scenery. And I think in some places, even outside of your marriage or your personal relationships, I think about how many jobs that we left the office to go on a retreat, or left the office to go do some outside activity, to bring, people together, but also to kind of get them outside of where you normally work, where your normal desk is, working in the same group that you normally work with. Like, you were forced to work with people that you may not have had communication with. So I think that's, also a good way to go. I think we also had retreats, at least for me growing up, in church. So we would have a church retreat where the church would go out off to some middle of the woods somewhere, and there's no, back then, there was no cell service because we didn't have cellular phones, but we couldn't watch TV, you couldn't have a radio, any of those things. It was just quietness in us, and then all of the workshops and things like that you had set up. But I think most definitely change of scenery is a plus. It's a plus.
Yeah, I think the, I don't know even how to put it, but, here's the reason why all this matters, because routine can make relationships feel predictable. And we definitely did feel rather predictable to some degree. And I will point it out every now and then. But when you pause, dream, and play again, you remember that marriage is more than partnership. It's purpose and motion. And to some degree, to be honest, in that routine, you feel like you still have your purpose to some degree. Because like, hey, I want to be a great parent. I want to be a great father or mother. And, I wanted the kids to have, something different than what I had, So you feel like that there is purpose in that. Yes. But there's a little bit more that God has provided you, given to you, and trusted you with. And sometimes we lose that because of routine and because of what other people are saying and doing or whatever it is. And, a lot of things, if you listen to That Will Never Work podcast, we talk a lot about looking at what a lot of other people are doing. And then you're like, well, why can't it be me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, how come I can't do that? And why am I not flourishing, or why I'm not traveling, or why I'm not eating, or why I'm not dressing like someone else? And then guess what? You're not yourself anymore. Right? You're not doing what you're supposed to do, what you were, sent here to do. And so, so I think that's what it comes down to. And I think that's where this moment for us being Puerto Rico is just a symbol. Like Kaffa said, we had other moments leading up to this since the pandemic. And we hope to have a whole heck of a lot more. We really do. So, I thank y'all very much for listening today.
Thank you so much for listening.
And we will talk to y'all just a little bit later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow.